Good morning. This is sort of like old times trying to quiet down the masses. Not quite exactly like, but good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this congregation proudly and gladly. It's great to see everyone here in the sanctuary. It's great to see folks out on the pavilion. And it's great to have you with us at home, those of you who have gathered online this morning. Welcome. As usual, I would like to honor those folks who make this service happen. In the AV room, we have Daniel Goodsit and John Forsyth. Abby Allison is here today, minus Sean, who's off to a conference in Chicago, the lucky guy. But we are joined by Steve Espinosa, who's going to be leading us in our hymns. I'm grateful that Elaine Cockcroft is here. She's our board member today that will be giving the announcements. And we have Amber Kastner, who's going to be lighting our chalice this morning. And also, very happy to turn over the welcome to Joanne Husky, one of our great worship associates. Joanne.
Well, let me add my welcome to Tony's, to all of you here in the sanctuary. It's so great to see all of you, and all of you on the pavilion out there, and to everyone at home watching on Facebook Live, and those who even catch us later in the week on YouTube. We want you to all know that you are always welcome here. As Tony mentioned, my name is Joanne Husky, and I am your worship associate this morning. The mission statement of this congregation that was developed 7 years ago states that we are a welcoming community, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. We are a people who try to live that out in our public lives. If you have found us online for the first time this morning and would like to connect with others, please use the chat button below Facebook Live or contact us at uunaples.org, and we would be happy to send you information about all the amazing activities that are happening in this vibrant congregation for fellowship and spiritual development. And now, please, everyone, take a deep breath. And let us settle into worship with this morning's prelude.
We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no one ear hears it, except in fragments. Let's join in our chalice lighting response that you'll see on your screen, and invite Amber Kastner up to light the flame afterwards. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. Oop. I didn't warn Amber about that. Thank you. And as Steve sings our opening hymn, those of you at home can hopefully join us, and those on the pavilion are welcome, and those of you in the sanctuary can perhaps hum along in your masks. And thank you, Steve, for being here this morning. We'll sing this morning, Come Sing a Song With Me.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
This morning, I am pleased to welcome and introduce our new religious education coordinator, Stephanie St. John. Stephanie is an educator, curriculum designer, and writing professional with over 20 years of teaching experience and 12 years of public relations management and team building experience. She's trained in both the Montessori and Waldorf methods, has taught special needs students, and has created after-school programming to assist children with social, creative, and critical thinking skills. More relevant to us here at UUCGN, Stephanie was able to bring her rich experience to bear to help two different congregations in the Indianapolis area create and build successful and meaningful Sunday school programs. Stephanie and her husband Van moved to Florida 3 years ago to be close to his parents. And last year, during the pandemic, Stephanie worked at the Pace Center for Girls creating online Google Classroom curriculum in biology, earth and physical science, and marine environmental sciences for middle school and high school ages. Having spent some good time with Stephanie this past week, I can share that she is totally and already immersed in making good things happen here, and I am absolutely, totally impressed that she has not only sort of seemed to absorb the Unitarian Universalist pocket guide, but is already thinking about incredible curriculum that she might develop given the richness of our tradition, the Unitarian Universalist tradition. So let me welcome Stephanie St. John. So thank you for being here. I'm excited, and I hope you are too. And if you have anything you want to add to my comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've never felt so welcome in a place. This week I've been working on getting to know the people who've been coming and going in the building. So some of you I've gotten to meet. I've been at a committee meeting for the Wonderful Wednesdays, and some of the children have talked about that, some of their parents. So I wanted to know all about that. So one of the things that you might want to know about me is that I'm a lifelong learner, and I am.
The microphone has to be on. I guess.
Yeah. I'm a lifelong learner. Most of my adult life, I attended an Episcopal church, but oddly enough, and I found this astounding when I read what the children say when they light the chalice. When my first child was born, my whole vision for them, for her, and then for her sister when she was born, was that I wanted to raise children that hearts and mind were wide open to accept life and all it had to offer, and people of all differences. And I wanted them to go into life and make a wonderful difference, whatever that may be for them. And then when they were lighting the chalice for the first time and I was listening to that, I thought, it made my heart sing.
We can remind people what that is, and I can do it so that you don't. I'm not putting you on the spot in terms of the hand signals.
And I'll do the hand signals.
We are Unitarian Universalists. We are the Church of the Open Mind. We are the Church of the Loving Heart. We are the Church of the Helping Hand.
So, and one of the things that I found with my girls, the people that I've just met here, you have so many gifts and so many talents. And like Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village to raise a child. And I know it did with my children. And they're always more enriched with their creative and critical thinking skills when they're around people of all ages. And if you think about it, some of these children, in the next decade are going to be on committees with you, and they're going to be voting with you, and they're going to be, at rallies with you. So I just find this place a very exciting place, and as a lifelong learner, I'm looking forward to learning and being on this journey with you.
That's great. And last week we started the program.
Yes.
I had 7 kids out near the gazebo doing some sort of gathering activities. And this week, how many kids are out there this week?
This week we have 8.
Okay, so one a week will be good, right?
Yes. Yes, we are growing.
By the end of the year, what would that get us?
Yes.
Anyway. So
if we grow by 1 each day,
yeah.
each second.
And I'm grateful for your comments about sort of critical thinking skills and teaching decision making, because that's what we do here. That's part and parcel of Unitarian Universal curriculum. Whatever the focus is to teach children to learn and to grow and to think, and then to be able to make decisions out in the world for themselves. So I think we're a good match.
I think we are too.
Okay.
I might be the missing puzzle piece.
Oh my gosh. How about that? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We welcome you. Please introduce yourself to Stephanie after the service if you can find her, because she'll be buzzing around. Great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and we updated the nursery a little bit, so if you get a chance, stop by the Beatrix Potter room. I just met the artist of the Beatrix Potter room and was astounded by her gifts too. So looking forward to working with you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Stephanie. So today's service is about choice, about our ability to be independent agents in this world. And our religious exploration program is the beginning. It's how we introduce our young people to the diversity, the rich diversity of the world, the wonderful ideas and concepts that are out there, our own values, so that they can be active participants, not only here, but important participants in the larger world. So we're grateful for Stephanie. Thank you. I'm really excited about her presence here. Let's center ourselves and our hearts with our centering hymn this morning, Spirit of Life. The words will be on your screen. We'll sing both English and Spanish versions.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí. Y al corazón, cántale tu compasión. Sopla el volar, sube en la mar, hasta modear la justicia de la vida. Arráigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
This time in our community where we, in the past, have had the opportunity to share with one another our joys and our sorrows, to be continued. I'm not coming out there with a microphone, so I hope that you will consider someone you're holding in your heart, someone who's been in your thoughts and minds this past week, who perhaps needs our collective attention. And as I move my hand across the auditorium, and of course those of you out there, if you could speak their name out loud in public and voice their name, then we will hear and share your joy or your sorrow. So please. Thank you. We also hold in our hearts Mary McGuire, who has visited the hospital and come back to her room at the Arlington in a bit better shape than she went. And we're grateful for her presence in our community, even though she can't be with us. And We hold in our hearts all those folks whose joys and sorrows remain unspoken. And for them, we light a candle of community, understanding that joy and sorrow are woven fine. And each of us has those moments that we need company along the path. Let's join in the spirit of meditation. Spirit of life, here in this space made sacred by our presence, let's give ourselves to the spirit of the moment and find the sacred oneness which binds all life together. We come together in a desire for equality and justice, recognizing affirming the dignity and worth of every person. In that same breath, we affirm that all women are moral agents with the capacity, right, and responsibility to make decisions about their own lives. We hope for the well-being of all women who lack full access to all forms of health care and lament the conditions that cause women to choose between basic necessities and health services that they need. Spirit of love, may we be inspired by our values and our principles to work for justice, so that no barrier of status or income divide us, and so that all may receive the health care that is best for them. Let us remember, renew, and relive the taste of hard-won struggles from the past in our continuing search for justice, and the lessons and guidance that they give us and lead us towards the promise of a more just and equitable future. In our time of shared silence, I hope you bring your deep hopes for your life, for the lives of those you cherish, and for all who dwell together on this planet into the moment. We'll share some silence together.
Today's first reading is extracted from the 2011 Interfaith Statement opposing restrictions on women's health care options. It was signed by 28 religious and nonprofit organizations, including the Unitarian Universalist congregations. Jewish, Christian, and Muslim organizations were all supporters of the larger statement, which pointed to specific legislation pending at that time. We are again confronted with similar legislation here in Florida that would have devastating consequences for women and their families, particularly for low-income women. And as you know, yesterday, thousands of Americans demonstrated against this legislation. Here is the statement. As people of faith, we believe in compassion, justice, and the dignity of all women. We affirm women as moral agents who have the capacity, right, and responsibility to make their own decisions about sexuality, reproduction, and their families. We understand that those who would restrict women's access to comprehensive reproductive health often are motivated by their religious beliefs and seek to impose their beliefs on others. However, freedom of choice means that every woman and man is valued as a moral decision maker, free to make personal decisions about their reproductive lives based on their own religious beliefs and consciences. We cannot presume to tell others how best to inform and listen to their own conscience as they make decisions about whether and when to have children or how best to care for their families. Different faiths and even groups within different religious communities hold varying views and opinions. But time and again, our nation has answered this diversity of opinions by upholding our founding principle of religious freedom. Reproductive freedoms are integrally bound with religious freedoms, a connection recognized by the Supreme Court's 1973 decision in Roe v. Wade. Women have a right to make reproductive health choices, free from constraints imposed by those seeking to legislate one religious view or another. Legislation that eliminates health coverage for and limits the availability of reproductive health care services through funding restrictions severely limit a woman's ability to make decisions about her own health and about how best to care for her family, guided by her own conscience, her personal circumstances, and her own moral and faith tradition. Today and every day, as people of faith, we stand up for women's health and reproductive choices, and we strongly urge our federal and especially our state government to do the same. The second reading today is in Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name, is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation. whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends upon it. And then when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go.
Yesterday, at the Collier County Courthouse here in Naples, the women's rally ran into some unexpected counter-protest. The organizers of the event clearly weren't prepared for a large contingent of well-organized pro-life people to show up with printed placards, with chants ready. And so the rally part of the morning resulted in some significant noise, back and forth, chanting back and forth. And those who were asked to speak, including myself, could be heard maybe about 5 feet away from the microphone. The sound system was not particularly strong. So it was an interesting experience, and reflects, especially here in Southwest Florida, the deep passion on each side of the issue of abortion and of women's reproductive rights. I couldn't help but thinking as I sat there waiting to know if we were going to speak, and before I spoke, of the stories in that crowd, stories on both sides of that issue. People whose passions stem from personal experience, people whose passions stem from their religious understanding. And not necessarily divided side to side, realizing that within the counter-protest too, there may be people whose experience was very different from what they were chanting. Many different stories in that crowd, I am sure. A few years ago, a number of Unitarian Universalist women ministers put together a set of their own experiences in reproductive justice, both personal, deeply personal, and their experience sharing stories that they encountered over time, changing the names, of course. I bring forward to you 2 stories this morning. Tara was 15 when she got pregnant. She had been active sexually, but not using contraceptives. When asked later why she hadn't been on the pill, Tara said she really knew nothing much about it at the time, due not only to her parents not talking about sex, but also that the school she went to didn't teach sex education as an informative class, but instead as an abstinence promoter. Once she learned she was pregnant, she really knew only one option. So at the age of 15, Tara became a mother. Mary Catherine's story was different. She had been using birth control and felt guilty about it since her church taught her it was wrong. But she loved her boyfriend, and they really didn't see any reason to wait to have sex. But the birth control failed. Now she was pregnant. She and her boyfriend had great plans. She'd been awarded a full scholarship to college, and they were ready to go. She wanted to become an architect, he a teacher. She was the oldest in her Catholic family and the first girl to have a chance to go to university. And now, the family message was that they should get married. She should have the baby, and both should forget about going to college. Given what had happened, they needed to get a job. He needed to get a job, and they needed to focus on becoming a family. Period. While Mary Catherine didn't see many options, neither was she ready to give up her dreams. My esteemed colleague, the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker, who counseled many women in her role as a parish minister, writes that every story she encountered involved a conflict, a struggle, an impasse in which a woman had to choose her way into the midst of some kind of risk and make her way towards what she loved, hoped for, and desired. But not everyone is aware of their options. And Parker continues, we live in a world where not all our desires can come to birth, where brokenness and failure haunt us with the need for redemption and repair, where larger systems of injustice or violence put children or parents at risk, where broken vows or unfulfilled promises break our hearts, where our inherited belief systems can collapse as inadequate, where our best efforts to love sometimes lead us to not. To navigate in such a world requires that we protect and exercise our power to choose and instill that power in others. Understanding as we do both the depths of sorrow and the heights of joy, we know that we are more than passive players in life's journey. Our hope in such an imperfect world is that everyone has access to truth and the means to engage life as active, educated, creative participants. The power to choose is the power of life. The power of choice, however, in many ways is a function of privilege. There are so many factors that can limit choice. Two powerful ingredients are economic inequality and domestic violence. It's sometimes too easy for us to forget that in the United States today, 1 in 6 children live in poverty. That's about 12 million children. And should you think that domestic violence isn't a significant factor, consider that 1 in 4 women report experienced domestic violence in their lifetimes. And 20% of all women who visit an emergency room each year do so as the result of domestic abuse. In addition, there's still a good part of our culture that sends the message to young women that they are unimportant except when they are serving others and denying their own hopes and needs. Despite harsh disadvantages and dehumanizing messages, the ability to see options can make for very different experiences. Provided with a choice, a woman can begin to inhabit her own life, making choices to improve her situation instead of feeling crushed by misfortune, injustice, violence, or failed systems. She can become an active agent with the power to improve her circumstances, her children's lives, and her society. She can calm her creative power to repair and care for life and make her way to safety and hope. Mary Catherine made a choice to meet with someone who would listen and counsel, who, without prescribing a path, could reveal all the options by providing good information and clear questions that allow for deeper reflection. You have the power to give birth, to bring a beginning life to term, her counselor told her. You also have the power to give birth to your own life, to bring the fullness of your life into being. What if both lives cannot come to birth? Which life will you hold close to your bones? And which life will you let go? And so, together with her counselor, Mary Catherine grappled with those religious questions as well as practical ones. The difficult struggle and her ultimate decision became an occasion for spiritual growth as she formed her own relationship to the faith in which she had been raised and claimed her own power to think theologically and discern spiritually what God asked of her. Taking control of her own life was in itself life-giving. The reproductive justice movement is based on this human right to make informed personal decisions about one's life and the obligation of society to create the conditions where those rights can be exercised. For those working to maintain reproductive freedom, the issue has become much more than one of personal choice. Led by women of color, the focus of many organizations active on this issue has broadened, recognizing that there are larger economic, social, cultural, and religious factors that have enormous impact on whether individuals or whole communities are able to make decisions and access necessary resources. Loretta Ross is the co-founder of Sister Song, an organization whose mission is to amplify and strengthen the collective voices of Indigenous women and people of color to ensure reproductive justice through securing human rights. Commenting on the alarming statistic that the abortion rate among African American women is 3.5 times that of white women, Ross says the pro-choice movement would say, let's open more clinics. The anti-choice movement would say, let's stop women from going to them. But those in the reproductive justice movement would say, let's ask why there is such an unintended rate of unintended pregnancies in our community. What are the driving factors in that? This broadened understanding of reproductive justice aligns fully with our Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes and our history of working across a broad range of justice issues in our quest for peace, liberty, and justice for all. Through this lens, the power of choice is not just a function of women's reproductive justice, but of economic, social, educational, political, and environmental justice issues as well. From its inception, the Unitarian Universalist Association has come to the forefront of fighting for women's reproductive rights, beginning in 1963, 10 years before Roe v. Wade. Our General Assembly of Congregations, our national membership, has voted on and issued no less than 15 resolutions supporting a woman's right to choose, including the latest 2015 Statement of Conscience on Reproductive Justice that was the result of 3 years of exploration and discussion on the topic at the congregational level and at all levels of our organization. Our open and welcome nature to people of varied sexual identities and our embrace of Our Whole Lives curriculum, our comprehensive sexuality education that helps participants make informed and responsible decisions about their sexual health and behavior, puts us clearly on the forefront, on the progressive side of issues on sexuality, more so than any other denomination. We are the first to formally adopt reproductive justice as a focus, and while we have allies in groups like the United Church of Christ and the Union of Reformed Judaism, as well as support from many other traditions, there's no other national movement that can step up the way we can if we put our minds to it. Unfortunately, the larger narrative has worked in the opposite direction. Since 1976, when the Hyde Amendment was passed limiting the use of federal funds to pay for abortions, there has been a slow but steady legislative effort across the nation to chip away at the gains made by Roe v. Wade. And after the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010, which promised expanded health care coverage to many who were not already insured, including access to contraception, efforts to restrict abortion accelerated, and there have been hundreds of measures passed by state legislatures that limit the choices women have. Not only that, but in many cases, those measures limit access to broader reproductive health care services that are desperately needed, especially in the case of marginalized women. As many of you know, your minister and a number of our members here at UUCGN have spoken out against a proposed local ordinance that would make Naples a sanctuary city for the unborn. Basically, an abortion-free zone. The Not in Naples slogan was created to oppose outside groups pushing to bring this kind of measure right here to our doorstep. But now the focus has shifted to the state level here in Florida as we face a Texas-style abortion bill which bans abortion after 6 weeks, before many people even realize they are pregnant. Not only would women's options be severely limited, but this bill has the potential of pitting citizen against citizen. Any citizen can file a lawsuit against a provider or any other person who is considered to be aiding and abetting those seeking abortion care. This would include anyone providing compassionate spiritual counsel, such as the kind that Mary Catherine received. The kind of conversation that provides information and clarity around the need to make a choice. This is not a bill about solutions, it's a bill about punishments. This is about barriers and burdens that fall hardest on people of color and people with low incomes whose options are limited already. Not in Naples, only if we speak out and act for our principles and the freedom that comes with responsible, informed decision-making. As Unitarian Universalists who have faith in a woman's moral agency to make decisions about her own reproductive health, we are called to counter this kind of heavy-handed moralism that oppresses and represses, constrains and restricts, smothers and stigmatizes. We are a tradition that upholds the ideal of pluralism, that ideal upon which our country was founded, which supports the right of conscience. So we who live by a theology of love, a theology of wholeness, a theology of liberation, we who choose to believe that all people have value and should be able to make decisions about what happens to their own bodies, we have an important role to play and must make our voices heard when it comes to the struggle for healing and wholeness. Our theology says that bodies are good, that knowledge is good, that sexuality is good. Our theology says there is strength and beauty in imperfection, that diversity is a blessing. Our theology says that talking about sexuality is not only appropriate, it is necessary in order to overcome all the brokenness we've inherited from thousands of years of bad theology. Our theology says that knowledge builds understanding and that understanding gives us the ability to make responsible choices. No one says that reproductive decisions are easy. They are not. They force individuals to look deep within and become theologians themselves, making life and death decisions. I recognize that many people, even in this room, struggle to know what is right and good on this issue. And we honor those who think differently. But as a body, we take a stand that says divinity, however you define it, rests in each one of us, and that we have been given free will to express that divinity through our own experience and understanding, that we are capable of making decisions for ourselves, especially when the context of a supporting community and in the light of our Unitarian Universalist ideals. Thus, we are called to support a woman's ability to choose her own path, choose her own life if need be. What our nation deeply needs right now is people of faith who are willing to challenge that fundamentalist, moralistic viewpoint on sexuality and create a culture where all people have the rights, respect, and resources they deserve to make good choices. We need people of faith who will stand up and address the social reality of inequality, specifically the inequality of opportunities that women of color have to control their own reproductive destiny. And we need to live a theology of love, that goes beyond personal reproductive decisions and speaks to the need for living wages, comprehensive medical and reproductive health care, and full access to voting rights in the political process. The world we envision includes social, political, legal, and economic systems that support everyone's freedom of reproductive choice, an expression of gender identity and sexuality, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized. In such a world, all communities are places of equality, they are places of safety, they are places of abundance. Our voices are needed to make it so.
As we take time to consider these words and today's message, let's also take time to show our gratitude for this community and all that it does. The morning's offering will be greatly received. If you are unable to join us in person today, please consider sending a contribution. The information you need to donate is on the screen. How do I follow that? Okay, good morning. My name's Elaine Cocroft, and I serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. I'm also on the Personnel Committee, and I usher from time to time. Let me just take a few minutes of your time to let you know what's going on here, because there's a lot going on, both regularly scheduled activities and some special things. Again, if you'd like to get more information or you're not currently on our mailing list, please feel free to send an email to the office at uunaples.org. I am thrilled to announce that the Weekend Meals for Kids Back to School fundraiser met their goal of $8,000. So we did it. Thanks to all of you who contributed. We'll be able to continue this great program, and we're able to add children to the already expanding list. The reopening committee reminds everyone that the sanctuary has been reopened in person, which all of you obviously know. We'll be holding to a maximum of 50%. We ask that people be vaccinated and wear masks at all times indoors as well as out in the pavilion. Also, the pavilion area continues to be open for worship and available on the video screen out there. Please check our emails and newsletter for any up-to-date information. Mindful Monday Forum, our twice-a-month lecture series, is back starting tomorrow evening with a program entitled The Rights of Nature. Our guests will be Gary Robbins from the Citizens Climate Lobby and Joseph, I'll probably mess this up, Bonanzia from the Florida Rights of Nature Network. Look at the Sunday news for more information. Finally, Wonderful Wednesdays returns next week on October 13th with a fun kickoff celebration of our coming together with opening vespers, a safe communal meal, and opportunities to share all that we've been through since we last gathered quite a while ago. Again, all the details will be in this week's news. And now, let us join together in singing our closing hymn, number 323 with Steve, Break Not the Circle, and the words can be seen on the screen. Thank you.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiving and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their own, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Thank you, Steve. My apologies to Marianne Dwyer, whose name I bungled during Joys and Sorrows. Marianne, our hearts and are with you. I hope you're watching. Our benediction this morning comes from the Reverend Lisa Friedman, whose writings I always enjoy. We live in a fragmented world that tempts us to despair. We would put it back together piece by piece if it were ours to choose. But sometimes the fragments are enough. In a world of cruelty, there is still power in every act of kindness. In a time of doubt, there is still power in every act of hope. In an age of division, there is still power in every act of unity. Let us remember that sometimes the fragments of meaning we make are just the right size to hold in our hands. Go in peace, go in love. Have a wonderful day.